Okay, so we are doing a, oh, I forgot to put doodle in my metadata. Goodness sakes. Okay, so we are doing a 2021, 20261. I hope I put it in the right way. Let me go over here and double check here that I put it in the right way. Yeah, I did. 20261. Okay, so I'm doing a doodle sketch here. And so I'm making a bunch of little tiny circles right around here, like this. We're just doing a pen sketch drawing. Like this. We're just drawing tiny, tiny little circles. They're all about the same size, just like this. Now, Gemini helped me come up with the inspiration for this drawing. And so we're working on pen sketching. Okay, and so Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope everybody's having a great day. And the same thing to people who have no loved ones around. Happy Christmas and Merry Christmas to you if you celebrate. And if you don't, it's just another day. So for a lot of people, it's just another day. Just another day of existence. And, you know, that's kind of some things I've said about related to a lot of things. Oh, that's pretty. Maybe we can get our line. Let's see if we can get our line through here like this. Yeah, I should be able to kind of color it in like this. I'm doing my pen sketch. Happy New Year, and we are working on being nice here. And I'm trying not to do anything that's going to violate anything. And I know people are spending time with their families. Not everybody has families, so that's why I decided that I'm going to I mean, I'm not able to, I do have family, I'm just not able to spend time with them in the traditional sense, you know, because those of us who have been military families spend our lives differently from other people. And so we're not always around our families. And then people who, you know, for example, time passes and you don't have any family to go spend time with. You just don't have any family, you know, due to age and traditions change. And so things just aren't how they were when we were young. Okay, so I'm working on my Happy New Year coin here. Okay, let me see. And made another discovery, 20261. There's a significance in the 20261. Well, let me share with you before I continue drawing. It says the number 20261 most commonly refers to a unique zip code in Washington, D.C., near the National Mall. Isn't that kind of fun? Okay, I have a comment. I'm so excited I have a comment. Let me see here who is commenting. Oh my goodness sakes, I have a comment. I'm so excited. I have one comment. Hello, Maria Castro 9556. Hello. Yes, I'm drawing a coin. I had actually I asked for it to draw me a half penny for this, but it drew a coin. It did a full coin. And so I'm going to attempt the best that I can to, you know, try to mimic some of the calligraphy effects if I can. I'm not sure if I can do it or not, but I'm going to give it a go here. Um, H, uh, we'll do a little fancy thing here. H, H. And you know, it was so funny. My grandma always gave me paper, stationery. And I think that the intent was for me to write to grandma, but I never used the stationery to write to grandma a whole lot. Every once in a while, I would write to her. And I know that grandma, I think in hindsight, when I was a kid, I would have needed prompting to write to grandma um, more often than I did. But that just wasn't something that I thought about. Now, when I was an adult, I did write to grandma a lot more often, actually. And then a lot of times I realized when I was by myself and I had kids and I was by myself, grandma didn't write to me as much as I thought grandma would have written. However, grandma was busy doing things, and grandma probably didn't have a whole lot to write to me about at that time. So I started writing to grandma more as when I aged. HAPP. But the zip code is very significant right now. I find that fascinating. 20261 is the zip code. 20261 is the number. And so 20261. And it comes up as the National Mall. It does come up as something else, but I am going to recognize Washington, D.C. and the National Mall. Because we put too much emphasis on California, and California is a bogus, bonehead journey. That looks pretty good, actually. And I didn't do block lettering. I just did regular lettering. I could add in block lettering a little bit afterwards, but the happy looks pretty good so far. Let's see. DIY Yard Meyer 6442. Hello. Thank you for subscribing. At Mosobazi, at ATM Mosobazi. Thank you. The Alaskan Devil. I'm not sure what this is, but I think you're great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. You're great too. I am back and masked while mysterious. Thank you for coming back. My grandmother has beautiful handwriting. It is a lost art. Wanda was here. Where is Wanda the DJ? Nate Druin M3M. Hello, Nate. So you guys are getting your shout outs. This is what I call collaborations. You know, when you guys come into the chat, it is a form of collaboration. It may not be like what you get from a celebrity when they shout things out, but they're very famous. I'm not. So I'm just trying to do my part here on YouTube, which I've always kind of been a fan and partial to YouTube and Google. I used to like Facebook, but not anymore. You know, I did. I really did, but I can't. I can't do Facebook anymore. You know, there's too many bad practices out of that. And so, and you know, the other thing that I realized too, Facebook has no, it's not a search engine. It's just a place. I am making a Happy New Year coin is what I'm making for 2026. I should get busy doing it instead of talking so much, shouldn't I? Okay, so let's work on the N over here. So we've got kind of an N. It's a fancy N right here. Like that. Okay. So I'm making just a sketch here, and I'm doing calligraphy, and we are doing different size lettering, just kind of with a one stroke, a pen one stroke. That's what we're doing. N E W. Okay, I hope I left myself enough room. I hope I did. Oh my goodness, maybe I didn't. Okay, let's see. I'm going to do Y. I'm going to make mine a little bit different. Why? Why? Oh yeah, doing it like this, I'm gonna have plenty of room. E. So we've got our block lettering here. E. A. Okay, A. Sometimes we have to improvise with what we're working with. R. Okay, let's get you on up here a little bit like this. And we'll add in some little, well, we can make our letters a little bit thicker once we get it all in there. Now, I don't have a pencil right now. I'm just doing this by pen, which means I can't erase anything. Okay, now we need to do the 2026 2026 2 0 0 2 and 6. Just like that. 2026. Now I know things are a little bit crooked on my coin here. Just a little bit. Just a little bit crooked, but it's just going to have to be that way. Now, I didn't leave myself as much room as I would have liked to. Well, maybe I did. Okay. I wanted to add some fireworks on here, on my coin. I kind of like my coin, you know, because we have significance of, we're going into our 250-year celebration, which that's great for billionaires that they're able to celebrate in a nice place, but not for homeless people. And, you know, it's really frustrating when trying to describe this to people who want to disagree and tell you how your life is when you know how your life is, and they think your life is not how your life is, and they want to disagree with you about your own life. And so, yeah, so this is to, okay, so we are drawing here. That's supposed to be a fireworks. I know it's kind of a sad looking fireworks there. It's kind of crooked. But what in the United States is not crooked, right? Everything in the United States is crooked when you look at it. I mean, there's not a... Should we draw a shamrock on here too or not? Technically, I'm going to draw hearts. This is what I'm going to do. We're going to call it a heart rock. I want to call it a heart rock. I don't want to recognize that other thing anymore. We're going to call this a heart rock instead of the shamrock. Okay, so we've got one, and we are going to get you done. We're going to get you in here with our heart rock. And we could do a 4-leaf heart rock. I think I have enough room to get, maybe, let's see. Okay, we've got, oh, yeah, let's do a 4-leaf heart rock. Well, yeah, we sure did. The 4-leaf heart rock. There we go. I don't have enough room for the tail, but we got one firework in here because that's all we had room for. We got a 4-leaf. Instead of 3, we did a 4-leaf. I like this, actually. Yeah, if I was creating a brand for myself, I think this would be kind of fun. I mean, where the 2026 is interchangeable, but I'd have to add a 1 on there as well. I don't know why. But the 226 is very significant. There's a lot of significance with the 226. And that's all I'm going to say right now. I'm not going to say anything else. Okay. Yeah, I'm just adding on some confetti. That's what I'm doing, is adding on a little bit of confetti. You know, what I'm going to put on some vines on my on my heart rock here. I'm going to put on a few little vines like this. Kind of like streamers. That'll work. Streamers. Okay, we're putting on little streamers. Yeah, okay, I like that. Oh, I like that a lot. Now, if I was actually designing something, this is how I would do it on pen and paper. I think this is kind of fun. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if someone is selling coins, they probably already have them made for the 250th anniversary of the United States and for the year of 2026. But this is how I would design it just like this, and I would put happy 250th anniversary 20261. 2026. No, 2026 is what I'd put on there. But, I want to shout out Washington, D.C. That's 20261 is their zip code. So there's actually another one, and I have, in all fairness, there's a second, 20261. It says commonly refers to a unique zip code in Washington, D.C., near the National Mall, or it can be part of an address like 20261 Pinesa. The Pine is spelled P-I-E-N, not P-I-N-E, but P-I-E-N, Lane in Northridge, California. 20261 Orchard Street in Newport Beach, California, or even a semester code, Spring 2026, for institutions like the University of Southern California, USC, class schedule. But it's the biggest one is zip code 20261 is a specific, unique zip code for large buildings or complexes in Washington, D.C., close to major monuments. I just learned something today. And to think, after I graduated high school, I thought I was done learning. That's kind of fascinating. I did not know that they had a unique zip code of 20261 for Washington, D.C. And it's like these numbers between something. Oh my gosh, I wish I could say more about this. I really do. Right now, I really do wish I could say more about this. Because of the combination of the numbers and what someone told me. And someone, I wish I could say more about this, but I can't. I just can't. I want to say so much more about this, but I can't. I can't say that it has something to do with a divorce lawyer, but I mean, there's nothing there. And so anyway, this is a beautiful coin, actually. I know you have to run now. But he has to go. I have to go because I have to go to my mama's for Christmas family. I'm making a coin. My gosh. I like this too. I'm making a Happy New Year coin. I just thought it would be kind of fun to make something unique, so in the future you can take and do the same thing and kind of make up your own blank template coin, and doodle it. That's just all I'm showing is how you can take. I don't own this. The only thing that I own of this is the video and my drawing. That's all. So anybody else can take and do the same premise. You make a giant circle, and then like a blank template. So for example, you have blank templates with resumes. Once you add your stuff to it, it's yours. It doesn't belong to whoever created the blank template. So, so that's just all I'm doing, is just making something kind of to celebrate the up and coming new year, and maybe even the 250th celebration of the United States of America, because they're trying to get people excited about that, but it's kind of hard knowing that we have so many homeless people and that there's so many lies being told about what's going on in this country. It's really hard to be that excited about it. But I just thought, well, let me do a little bit of something and I'll try. I'll give it my best to try to do something, you know. I mean, I really want to live in reality, and I do all the time. I've been told that I don't live in reality and that my life is not my life of what is really happening to me, but it really is. And, oh, I like that. And so I've been told that I'm not a real person, and I am, and I'm pretty sure that, um, I think my divorce lawyer knew that I was a real person too, but I'm not positive. Maybe he questioned what I was. I'm pretty sure that he did. I don't know. I never really got to talk to him or know him in that way at all. Um, so, that's just where I am right now. I don't want to add too much in here because of the fact that I don't want to do too much. I'm just going to enhance a little bit with a tiny block lettering. It's not a big block lettering. We're just doing a little tiny. I like that a lot now. Oh my goodness, I like it better than the one I'm looking at on the screen. Um, and see, I added my own things to it. I changed it up from the original one. Um, and I remember one time I was sitting on a cruise ship one time. I was making these tiny dots, tiny circles like this, and one of the staff comes up to me. It was almost like he knew who I was, which I found funny. But he just felt confident enough to come up to me, and he said he was looking at what I was doing, and he's like, "You're making them all the same size." And I thought it was so funny. I was really glad though that my husband was not around, um, because of the fact that he did not like me talking to men in general. And I didn't realize that. It's like, well, I mean, oh my gosh, and even men who are like his men, that's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to be offensive on Christmas, and I'm trying so hard not to be. But he just went ballistic. And so he didn't like other men even talking to me. And so the thing I've always said is like, my goodness gracious, how do married people talk and communicate at work? So if a woman has a jealous husband, maybe that's why he doesn't want her to go to work. I never thought of that in a controlling manner. He doesn't want her to go to work, and he doesn't want her to do a stay-at-home job, especially if it's involved with media, because of the fact another man might see her value and treat her better than he does, and he knows that. He's very insecure, and he's afraid of losing her. And so when she has a voice someplace, he's afraid of losing her to someone else who will treat her better than he does, and he knows that. He knows he's not treating her good. So I just talk these things through in the sense of, rationalizing them for myself, because that's the only way I can get answers to make myself feel a little bit better about what happened, because I won't ever be able to get it from him. I never anticipated or expected that I would, because I knew in the past that it's just that the thing is the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, or what one is it? So that men just have a different thinking than women do, and there's men that are great to their wife, and I know my dad was great to my mom. They were married, teenage, high school sweethearts, and they were together their whole life. And my dad set the bar so high that for men that I don't think I can ever find a man who could match my dad. And even not only that, it was my dad who told me one time when my mom was at the hospital having surgery. the nurses had told him something. I don't know. I think maybe it was, I don't know if it was that he could leave the room or something like that, or go take a break or something. And so my dad said one of the nurses told him, most men just don't stay around. And I think and I think he found that hard to believe, but when my mom was having a surgery, the nurse was basically saying that most men don't stay around. That's true. I've been in the hospital to have a surgery before, and my husband was not there at all. At all. This was the first one. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, even with when I had babies too, He didn't stay around. Now, the one thing I'll say though, when I had my kids, and I was near family, it was like there's a reception line of people who want to come and see the newborn baby, and they will travel. Like in the 1960s was sort of an extension from the 1970s, and early 80s was an extension from the 60s and 50s, from the Depression era. That's why I'm thinking, because the malls were new back then, the shopping malls were new back then, and people were wanting to get out of the house. They weren't driving covered wagons anymore. Women were starting to drive more. The husbands were letting the wives drive a little bit more, and society was saying, "Now, well, here, look, women can drive too," And so people were finding this shopping thing kind of fascinating because of the fact shopping and hospitals are kind of the same premise. So for example, when you have a baby, in where I grew up, everybody wanted to go to the hospital. And church that helped with that too. If you had a baby and someone put it in the bulletin, then you'd have people going to the hospital to see you who you have no idea who they are, because church is helping with the promotions of, well, you can go to the hospital gift shop and you can buy a gift for the mom and the new baby. And, so, it was kind of nice though for someone starting out when you had church, but the church has also helped for free the medical industrial complex, I think in Wall Street. Now granted, I don't think they have any ties or anything like that. Most of them probably don't and aren't making any money from this, but it's just the word of mouth thing. And so word of mouth literally trumps the expectations of any kind of promotions related to generational things. When there's something new, people want to do it, and it's like, oh my gosh, we have hospitals now, so let's go see mom and the newborn baby in the hospital. We're bored. There's a new store that opened. A new store that opened. Well, the new store that opened might be identical to the other store. It's just that it has a different name, a different layout. It might have some newer technology things in it. It's pretty much the same thing, but it just looks a little bit different. And it might have, clothes. The clothes too, yeah. So, yeah, we go into town, we see the mom and the newborn baby, and this was our the friend of a friend, we decided to bring her along too. And so then you end up with a whole bunch of people, and then maybe some flowers, a bunch of flowers, and that was one of the things I always worried about when I was young, because my mom, it was like every week she was buying flowers for somebody who had passed away or had had a baby. And I thought, how in the world do they afford this? How do they? And I was worried. I was literally worried about this because I thought, I can't afford to live in this area if I'm expected to spend $25 to $50 on a bouquet of flowers every time someone dies and has a baby in the area where I live just because I know them. I am going to go broke very fast. And as a kid, I was literally worried about this. I thought, I can't keep up with the Joneses. I just can't. I can't do it. And I was so kind of happy in a way to be able to move away from that, because I thought, this is not sustainable for me to be able to support the flower industry for funerals, weddings, and babies. I can't do it. I just can't. I can't. I mean, I might be able to go outside and pick up some dandelions or something, but I can't sustain the flower industry because someone had a new baby. It's like everybody and their brother has already had a baby before. People have died before, and it's like, give the people, if you're going to pay $50 for flowers, you know what? I think the people would rather have the money than the flowers. Granted, I will say flowers are beautiful, but, if you're going to have to spend $50 for a bouquet of flowers, they'd rather have the money. Um, but at the same time, flowers is another thing. Flowers are not a necessity of life. They just grow. God has given us flowers just by being on the planet Earth. Some flowers are edible. I think dandelions are one of the most beautiful flowers ever. My mom didn't like dandelions in the yard, but she lived with them. We had them. She didn't try to get rid of all the dandelions like home associations do. My mom had lots and lots of dandelions in the yard, and she called them weeds, but I liked the dandelions in the yard. Mom didn't, but we had them in the yard. Mom didn't try to eliminate the dandelions out of the yard. You can't. You will never, ever, ever get rid of God's dandelions. Because you know what? I saw this saying that I really, really liked a few years ago. And it said, military children grow where dandelions live. And I liked that. Maybe I should find a dandelion drawing to make in the new year, because I really liked that saying. Because every house I ever lived in had dandelions. Oh, look what we've got in here too. APP, the Appy. Do you guys know Ed Bassmaster? You remember Ed Bassmaster on YouTube? He was always talking about the Appy, like application or the Appy. So you take the H off for Appy. The Appy New Year, Appy New Year. And you know how a lot of YouTubers act kind of dumb and low IQ, and I think that's because it's just become sort of a meme, which is where the brain rot ties in really, really well, because of the fact there's so many people saying, oh my God, they say all this negative things to us all the time, not just a little, and then they don't believe that we're real people either, which I think is funny. It's like, okay, well, if you think I'm not a real person, then I'm going to dumb it down even more. We're going to dumb it down even more. And so anyway, but the app, so I tried to make sense of things, and so I type things in. So Appy, app, application. You've got the apps on the Google Play Store. Happy New Year, Google and YouTube. This is our platform here that is providing the means for us to be able to upload this stream today. So big shout out to Google and to YouTube. And so the Google Play Store, you can find lots of things there. They do have lots and lots of free apps. Google, oh my gosh, YouTube has some of the best things right now. They've got games for free. The Google Documents. So we've got Google Documents where you can store a resume inside of and have access to it anywhere. So it's a great way to transfer things. You might not have a lot of storage, but you can pay for storage, but it's up to you whether you do that or not. You could also have a YouTube channel and store things in private on your YouTube channel, just like you would on a Google Drive too. But see, Google Drives are a great way to transfer things. So if you have a business and you need to, this is how I've always done it. It's kind of like email in the same way. If I need to transfer something from one account to another, I upload it to one account where, for example, I have a phone, if I have a Pixel, and the Pixel won't, like right now, my Pixel won't let me have TikTok on it. And so, but if I need to transfer something, then I'll use Samsung to upload it to, and then Pixel can go to it through the internet to pick up the document, or vice versa. If it's a picture or something that I want to transfer from one phone to another, sometimes I have to upload it into a internet drive, through an application of some sort. But now the application, this is the thing I've talked about related to applications. You have a job application, application, AP, oh, the Associated Press. Is that where this ties into? AP is in the Associated Press and the United Press International. UPI, 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 puppy, UPI, puppy. Oh, maybe there is something there. PUPP, PUP, UPI, the United Press. See why some of these things are popular. And so when I talk them through, it's an additional talking them through, so when we're a kid, we're trained to talk our words through. So if I was like in the first grade, my teacher would say, sound it out, happy. Or year is like if I had a hard time saying the Y, year. And so inside of here, so here, ear, but we want to add ear. This is where the vocalizations come into play. Ear. So is it ear or year? Or did we just add on extra letters just because we wanted to add on extra letters? I mean, because we could say ear, and adding on the Y, which is a happy. Now, why is it this Y sounds different than this Y? Happy. This sounds like E, but then this one is year, but happy. Ear. So it's kind of like these two are silent. They cancel each other out. So really, we don't need the Y in our English language, but yet we do have it. So we just will have fun with it, right? Just like the X. The X and Z, yeah, X is actually a S sound. So we do have additional letters in our alphabet that we probably really don't need, but we have them. So we just will have fun with them, right? That's what I think. And I think that, well, the space organizations are, when you have SpaceX, I just can't say anything else about that. Clearly, SpaceX exists in space, and it's been done before, so that's all I can say about that, and so your is pen, it is pen. Oops. Oh, I didn't mean to breathe so hard to push my coin out of the view. Why did he leave? He left. The mask, while mysterious, left. Oh, goodness sakes. And so, I like that, just like that. I don't think I'm going to add any more to it. Just like that. I'm going to just leave it right there like that. And I'm going to leave my coin right there like that. And see what kind of animation I can get a little bit later out of my animation. And so, why did he have to? He's sad because he has to go. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, look at the time, too. Oh, the time that he had to go. 116, which is 911 upside down. He's sad he had to go. Oh, my goodness. Well, if you have any ideas of something that I should draw a little bit later, I think it would be fun to, I'm going to keep doodling. I'm going to do it anyway. I'll think of something maybe on my own. But I like that though. The hearts, see, we turned them into, I always said that about shamrocks. They look like hearts anyway. They do. 4-leaf clover and three-leaf clovers. They do. They look like hearts. They are nature's hearts. Shamrocks are clovers. Clovers. Crimson and clover, over and over. Crimson and clover. Oh, but you know what else? The word clover. You know what's in the word clover? I've said this before, and I said it on my original YouTube channel too. Subtract the C. Okay, let me put this on the back of this paper, and we'll do it. Well, I'll tell you what's on the back of what's on. Okay, so let's do this. C L O. We're going to make a square O. V E R. We have lover and we have over. And then I'm not sure what a ver would be. Vernon. Oh, Vernon. So we've got clover, lover, over, and then ver, and then, and oh, Vernon. We want to keep this going down. And then we've got O-N, right? And then not only that, N-O-N, A-N-O-N-Y-M-O-U-S, 67, star 67, and the phone, you guys remember star 67. Star 67 was so we could make anonymous phone calls. Star 69, I believe, was the reverse, where we could call up, but we had to pay like either a quarter or 50 cents or something like that to see who was calling. So you didn't want to do it very much, but you know, so the thing is, it was almost made you wonder. Now in hindsight, I kind of think maybe, was there a conspiracy of someone from the phone companies who wanted to muster up additional money, and so then they would have their employees call up people that they thought might, you know, because it's like, okay, if you're married and you have someone calling you, and you have suspicions already, you're a woman with some insecurities, and then someone calls you up, and then you have insecurities, you think, I want to see who that person is that's calling me. And then they play on that, you know, with the 67 anonymous. And so, well, let's finish up the phone dialer rotary here. And we'll do our little chord here like that. And so now we've created a word association wordplay game out of this, out of clover, lover, over, ver, none, on, anonymous, N-O-N, nonny, Ani, mouse, M-O-U-S, M-O, Mickey, M-O-U-S-E, anonymous, must, why is it must and not mouse? It should be mouse, and then ouse, house, the mouse house. And so, well, I think that's all I have to say right now. I'm just talking about nothing right now. I'm just doing some verbal brain rot. That's a good word for it. A live stream of brain rot. That's better than rambling. Rambling brain rot is what I'm doing, I think. But I'm trying to make it educational too, at the same time. And so I'm just tying in our verticals on the internet. trying to tie them in together. And then, but I know why things surface up to me, because I've had something in my metadata and it surfaces up to me. That's why it surfaces up, because I made it and I put it in my title, in my metadata, and that's why it comes up to me, because that's how interest-based works. That's why I changed my video style a few years ago, because I thought, even though I love doing one topic only, it does get boring. And so that's why I decided, well, let's switch it up a little bit and do some things that is more topics only. To do more topics only, so that I could be in that category of crossing over, and then crossing over. Let's see. Let's add that in here somewhere. Xing. Crossing over. You know what's fascinating is the word sing is inside of crossing, and that's popular. And this, of course, is a cross, and X is a cross, and this is a cross. So there's two ways: the plus sign and plus and times, which is math multiplication. It's kind of fascinating when you think about it. But crossing, when we use the word crossing, we're always saying the word sing. Ingo, ingov, Glover. And you know, crossing over is Gover, gover. And then if we did Ner, crossing over, crossroads. Crossing over, go. It's governor is spelled Gover, and then Ner. We would have to name a pet Ner, I think. Ner. Governor, Gover, Gover. Gove. Dover, the Gover and the Dover, Delaware, Bendover. Isn't there a Bendover, Dover, Delaware? Why do I remember these bad jokes? You know, that's why I remember some of the history of these big cities that I've never been to. Bendover, Delaware. Delta Dawn, what's those undies you have on? No, we don't want to know. But you know what? Do you remember the thing back in the 1980s? 1980s was the popular thing. I have to draw this. I have to draw this before I go. I know you guys probably want me to leave. I have to do this. Okay, so, okay, I'm going to draw this real quick. There's like a little flower garden. We're going to make a nice little flower garden right here. And there's some grass. Flower garden right here. And then you've got, now remember, this is a hunk of wood though. And so this is a hunk of wood, and it kind of looks like this. It kind of looks a little bit like a cemetery. And then it's like kind of painted up like this. And then there's like shorts here. And then there's like, this is a hunk of wood. This was popular in farm country. And then there's like flowers. I mean, in every place we drove, there was one of these there. And so sometimes there was like flowers. They were painted up on this. And so what this depicted, what, you know, and sometimes it might be a little skirt or something like this. But usually it was just kind of like, it was the woman of the farmhouse. This was a joke. This was a meme. And I mean, every place you drove, this big hunk of plywood was in the front yard of the flower garden. And everybody thought it was funny. And I know there's going to be a lot of people who remember this from farm country. Because that's what we were looking at in the 1980s, was this big hunk of plywood in the flower garden that was planted in here in the flower garden like that. And, sometimes it literally looked like a person, but it wasn't. It was a big hunk of plywood. And so people who had a farmhouse, they lived close to the highway, it was just the biggest joke. And usually they were just kind of, I'm not even sure. Every once in a while I would go to a market, a flea market or something, they'd be selling them. I think most of the time they just painted them up themselves. And so this was kind of like a woman of the house joke thing for people who were living on the farm. And so they just had the big hunk of plywood. It was great big. They had a great big behind. It wasn't small. It was great big. Sometimes it was a skirt, sometimes it was a dress, but this is all it was. That's all it was. Nothing else. This is all that it was, and it looked like it was a woman who was bent over in her flower garden. There was no hands, no nothing. This is all that it was. Technically, it kind of looks like it could be two ice cream cones blended together, but when I look at it here, how I drew it, but this was funny because it was a woman's backside in the Midwest. And I mean, you would drive for miles and miles. And then I just started looking, if I was going on a trip or something like that, or we were coming to visit family from wherever we were stationed at. This was funny. It kept me entertained for a long time looking to see. And I'd try to get my kids. It's like, well, just look in the front yard to see if there's a woman bent over in the flower garden. Then my son, I think he was a little bit more fascinated by it than my daughter was. But I just always thought it was kind of funny. And usually then there was a little, oh my gosh, you'd have a little wishing well right here. I wanted to have a front yard with a wishing well in it. There was kind of kind of like Jack and Jill went up the hill. They all had a wishing well, and it was made of bricks, kind of like that. That's what I always wanted, to have a yard with a wishing well in the front of it. And then there was like a watering can somewhere, kind of like this. And so they had something that was called Country Living. I think there was a Country Living magazine too. And so, yeah, the watering can. We had a handle there like that. And so these were all things that everybody else had. I couldn't do any of it because I didn't own a house. But see, everybody who, lived in the area where I grew up, what they had was some of them had bought old houses, some had new houses. All these ladies remodeled their houses. They weren't the same, but they were similar. So they had like this country living style. So they all put this wallpaper on. It was god awful wallpaper on the kitchen walls. It was like flowery border designs on the walls. They would put on, and then they'd put it up, they'd have it up there for a while and then decide they didn't like it and then take it down. So it was like they were forever removing the wallpaper from the walls and then putting up different wallpaper. And I often thought, that seems like too much work. I'd just paint over the wall. I was thinking, I really don't want to do that. And plus, you're putting all this wallpaper up on the wall and then stripping it off. Then there's the risk of pulling the wallboard off, so you have a big hole in your wallboard. At least I did learn how to fix wallboard, though, with spackle and with other things. I did learn how to fix. Well, my dad actually had me doing that, though, when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and we put up the gauze. Well, Merry Christmas, Navy Allison. Merry Christmas, Navy Allison. And so, yes, so to me it looked like a lot of work, and I thought, well, it kind of had me appreciating the government military quarters where we just had eggshell color on the wall. It really did. It just had me, because I thought, I like the idea of painting. Painting is okay, but all that work putting wallpaper on the wall, and then some of them was fabric, and I'd go and I'd look, so I'd kind of daydream sometimes. And even my husband at the time too, he would go too, and we would look at samples of wallpaper, just because they had them someplace, like in, oh my gosh, in Sears or J.C. Penney's or something like that. So it was kind of a transition from the time where you didn't have a salesperson stalking you and hunting you down in the store. You could just go look at the book. And so sometimes for me, I would just go, either when my kids were in school or even when they were little, and I'd kind of look at the book. It was just something to get out of the house, kind of like I looked at the fabric, the sewing patterns and things like that. Sometimes I'd go sit in Walmart when they had what was it, Walmart or Kmart? I don't remember. They had sewing patterns, and I'd just sit there and I'd sit on the stool and I'd just look at the patterns to get an idea. And sometimes I'd just look at them just to look to see if there was anything any different. And I'd think, well, I would like to make that, but I can spend $2 or $1.50 for a pattern, or 75 cents up if it's on sale. But I really don't have the money to buy the fabric. So I'd find things to keep myself entertained and not buy anything. So I trained myself really, really good to not buy things when I went in the store because of the fact I never had any money. And so and I find it fascinating that there's these people. It's like, oh, you're a woman, go shopping, go shopping. It's like, I'm really not interested in going shopping, because if I don't have money to go shopping, I can't buy anything. So there's a misconception about women. I'm the person, when I was young, I was going into the commissary with a calculator because I had a certain amount of cash, maybe $75, maybe $100, and that was it. And that was to feed us for 2 weeks, maybe, sometimes a month. And back then we could live off of $75 to $100 for a family of 4 to 5 for a month. Can't do that now, unfortunately. So, yeah, but I was the one with the calculator. And you know what? I was not the only one in the store with a calculator. That's the funny part. I was not the only one. And sometimes it didn't happen very often, but I got pretty good at kind of guessing at how much things were going to cost. Plus, I had to include tax, and usually tax was going to be about maybe, anywhere from $10 to $20, I think, maybe something like that. And or actually, I think in the commissary, I think they called it a store fee or something like that. And the store fee in the commissary wasn't that expensive. I think sometimes it would be like maybe $2 or something like that. It wasn't expensive like the regular grocery store. So I have to take that back, because the commissary was quite a bit different. And you know what? They had some good sales too. They would have like cans that didn't have labels on them, and so it was a mystery of what we were getting. But sometimes they would be sitting with other things, so I would kind of guess and think, well, maybe this is what's inside. But they would say, well, we really don't know what's inside. And it was worth buying it, so it was kind of a mystery as what was inside. A lot of times it was fruit. Most of the time it was actually fruit, things that I needed. I was going to eat anyway. And so it was kind of nice to get the discount because it didn't have a label on it. And, so I didn't care, I just didn't like beets. And I don't remember ever getting beets, which was nice, because I hated beets. I didn't know what I was going to do with them anyway. I don't even know why they sell beets in the store. If you did a survey, I bet most people would say they don't like beets. And do you remember George W. Bush, or H.W.? I think, was it him? One of them said they didn't like broccoli or something like that. I think they said they didn't like broccoli. It was some green vegetable, which I thought was funny. It's like, well, they asked him what he didn't like, and it was broccoli or Brussels sprouts. Some of the vegetables are nasty. You have to put like fattening stuff on them to make them taste good. It's kind of like okra. Okra is okay, but I like fried okra, and I like pickled okra, but it's slimy. And if you eat too much of it, then it just kind of, it's one of those things that starts to kind of make you gag. So it's a really weird thing with okra, because because it is slimy. I like the little seeds inside of okra, but it's just a really weird vegetable. Um, it is. It's real. It's really strange. And so a lot of times with vegetables, you kind of got to do something to them. Um, is this a weird Christmas vlog? Um, Merry Christmas. Oh goodness. Um, he has to go to mom. Don't you have to go to Pawpaws too? To Pawpaw? Way down yonder in the pawpaw patch. The pawpaw patch. Oh, wait a minute. Oh my God. They had us singing a naughty song when we were kids. In Pawpaw's patch. Is that Mama's patch in Pawpaw's patch? And you know what else too? One of the fun things that my only mother-in-law that I ever had, she made some puffball donuts. Oh my gosh, they were so good. She made the best, and I had her recipe for a long time. I don't have it anymore, but her puffball donuts were really, really good. They were really good. And so I think that's all I'm going to say right now. Um, Meemaw and Peepaw. I always thought that, well, if you're going to call her Meemaw, then his name should be Peepaw. Meemaw and Peepaw and Mama and Papa and Mimmy and Papa and Pappy and Mappy and Moomy and if I was a kid hearing all of this on the internet, it's like, well, they don't even know what grandma is anymore. Granny and Grampy and Pampy and Dampy and Crampy and Grumpy and Gimpy and Geezer. My kids. One of the fond memories for me, my kids when they were teenagers, it was like our last tour in Germany, and they kept calling this old German guy. They called him the old geezer. I thought it was so funny. There was this old German guy at a house in the town where we lived at, and I don't know what he was doing. It seemed like they liked him though. That was the funny part. Now my kids, they said they would go sitting in the guest house and they would drink and smoke because it was legal. In Germany it was legal and they weren't getting carded, and there was nothing I could do about it. So they'd sit in there and they would order beer. They'd order beer when they were teenagers, for crying out loud. And they would smoke too. Plus the first sergeant next door, he left beer sitting outside on the front stoop. So we had a beer truck that came by. And the beer truck, of all things, we had a beer truck that delivered beer to us. Free. No, it wasn't free. I think everybody was wishing it was free, but no. We had a beer truck that would deliver beer to us. So they would order beer. And so Germany didn't have near the hang-ups. They also had nude beaches. Germany had nude beaches. And so, anyway, the first sergeant would leave the beer sitting outside and the kids would get into it. And now the kids, my son told me he was climbing from one part of the house to the other part of the house, and he was up on the third story. He was going from one window to another window and going inside his friend's house, who was just next door. So between the two of them, now there was another stoop down lower if he fell, but he never did. So he figured out a way to go from point A to point B, and so they were just doing their own thing. And I would have absolutely no idea that they were doing this because I didn't have eyes on top of the roof to see that they were climbing from across the roof. And did we have, no, we didn't have tile. I don't think we had tile, no. What type of, I can't remember if it was tin or what type of shingles. Maybe we just had normal shingles. I don't exactly remember. But if I know my son, he was pretty tall. He probably figured out a way to jump down from the roof to the other roof and then get down and just let himself outside and, and there was probably someone else who was actually helping him get back up once he snuck out of the house. And And so anyway, but there was another time though, my son, oh my gosh, him and this kid was older. So my son, how old was he? He was 14, 15 years old. This other guy was a few years older than him. And there was something about video games, and they had backpacks, um, and so he was just gone. This was in the spring. He was just gone. Him and the other, and so they were playing together, and they were just gone. And so he didn't come home, and so I was kind of concerned. It's like, well, what am I don't know what to do. It's like they always say in the United States, you have to wait 24 hours for a missing person. And it's like, I don't know how to speak German. So I called the military police, I think is what I did. And they said, well, you're going to have to call the Polizei. I'm like, oh, okay. Yes, I'm going to have to call the Polizei. And I said, well, do you think I should wait for 24 hours just to see if he comes back home? And they said, yeah. Just wait. And so I waited. He didn't come back home, so I called the Polizei. And he still didn't come back home. And then I think it was maybe about 5 or 6 hours later, they found him. And him and the other guy was at a laundromat. I don't know how he got up there, but someone gave the two of them, a ride up to the laundromat, and they spent the night in the laundromat playing video games. Not only that, they had my son. He had, he had like 60 condoms in his book bag, and I thought, oh my, what in the hell? Why he had wishful thinking? It was like he must have taken the condoms from, I don't know where he got them from, because I was telling my kids if they ever needed condoms when they were teenagers, I'd go buy them for them, because I didn't want them to have to deal with becoming a teenage parent. And so the military base where we were stationed before, they actually had condoms in a basket, but they called it lifesavers. And so the kids after school, they would walk from the school past the dispensary, and so they figured out, well, let's just go into the dispensary on our way home. And so someone told them there was lifesavers at the dispensary, so they went in and they would grab handfuls of lifesavers, but they were condoms. And so that was at the time of HIV and AIDS and all that stuff. So the kids, so I'm thinking they must have done something like that somewhere else, and I didn't know about it. And my son was getting free condoms from somewhere, and so he had my daughter said they pulled out when they opened his book bag. He had him and the other kid had a whole bunch of condoms. They probably had 120 between the two of them, and I thought, they were only gone for 24 hours. What did they think that they were gonna do? Didn't need that many condoms. Oh my gosh. But at least they were prepared. They were prepared, and they weren't going to get any girl pregnant, that's for sure. But I was thinking they had to have found condoms from somewhere or something. And I thought, well, was the other, I still can't figure out how my son got up to where he got to. Someone had to have given him a ride, because neither him or the other kid had a driver's license. And so someone helped my son escape. Helped him escape and get to where he was at, up to where he was at, and then they found him, and they thought he should be doing some things that teenage boys do, and I guess that was one of them. They were playing video games in a laundromat with a bunch of condoms. What an odd combination of things. Plus, they didn't have any food or money. They had very little money. So I don't know how they ate. I don't remember if I asked my son. He said there was a vending machine near the laundromat or something like that where they were at. So I don't know what, I never went to the laundromat to see where he spent the night at. But, I just took his word for it, because there was vending machines and a lot of places near the troop building and things like that. So, I just figured, yeah, to me it sounded kind of suspicious that maybe there was some soldiers involved with this and someone who drives involved with this, and they saw two young men who just wanted to spend the night out by themselves. And I think there's sort of a conspiracy that will never be solved as to what was going on with my son that night and the other kid. They probably helped some other teenage boys break out of the house too, I bet. You know, yeah. Now, and this is where I've always said, yes, I did have some bad influencing from television because of the fact that the daytime talk shows and women were always planting seeds of doubt based on what happened to them. And it's like, well, why should I just assume that all men are bad just because they hang out at a playground? Is that the kind of society that you want? Is just because a man is at a playground, he's bad for watching kids? Why do we want that kind of society? Now, at the same time, you know, just because something bad happened to someone else doesn't mean that it's going to consecutively happen bad. But I will say that when you have abuse and abuse situations, that a lot of times the abuse does continue. So we do have a lot of problems in our society. I admit that. And it doesn't matter what kind of society it comes from. So, the more you allow it to happen, the worse that it gets. And I guess we've seen examples of that, big examples in the past 5 years, haven't we? And I think the right person is the right person of where he's at this time. And he's showing a lot of the bad practices of what's happening and why it's happening and who it's coming from. And its ties to legacy media. And why we are where we are right now, and how society systemically allows for some to become successful and others to not be successful. But yet, if you want that balance, you're going to have to balance out the money supply. But that's the part that's hard because of the fact with Wall Street involved, and it falls on deaf ears because it's like, oh no, you're not going to take my mansion away from me. My God, I have like 30 mansions. You're not going to take my 30 mansions away from me. I'm employing people. I mean, how many more mansions does Jeff Bezos need, or Bill Gates? How many mansions does he have to begin with? Even celebrities, why do they need all those mansions? And are they really employing people? That's the thing that I ask, because, I've seen the thing of where when some of these mansions get closed up, they cover them up with plastic furniture so they don't get dusty. And then they turn into kind of like old cobweb-ridden mansions that, if the billionaire decides that he's going to go stay in his cobweb house, it's just sitting there. The power's kind of been shut. Well, no, they're probably paying for power, but they don't use it. A motion light might come on every now and again. There's probably some cobwebs inside of the house. But then if the billionaire decides he's going to use that house one year for Christmas or something, or a holiday, there's going to be cobwebs all over. He's going to have to hire a team of people to come in and clean the house out because there's cobwebs and spiders and bugs all over the place, and there's dust. There's like 2 or 3 inches of dust on the floor and on top of the plastic, and so he's going to have to hire a hazmat team to come in and suck up all the dust and rotten bugs. Well, wait, is there going to be bugs in there? Because if there's no food in there, the bugs will eat the other bugs. So yes, because there's bugs inside, then that means there's a hole inside to the mansion, which means there's a bunch of creepy crawlies crawling inside of it, which means that snakes and skunks and rodents can actually all make their way inside of that billionaire's mansion because of the fact there's giant gaping holes in the wall. And so it's just kind of like they follow each other. So it's like, hey, look, we got a place to live here because we've got a big giant gaping hole. And so, they crawl in and things crumble, the bricks crumble, the siding crumbles, the wallboard crumbles, and as each rodent makes its way in, some little squirrel eventually gets its way inside of there. And so the squirrels are going in, and then the cats are going in. The cats are following the squirrels, and then you've got the little wood kitties that are following their way in. The skunks, they and the rabbits, they've made their way in, and the mice and the rats, they've made their way in. And so you've got a whole chain of animals that are going in. Then you've got some little domestic cats and some dogs going in, and some wolves and coyotes that are going in, and some bats that are going in, and birds that are going in. And eventually Mother Goose makes her way inside of the big mansion because she's good. Well, this is a good place. Over here is a big puddle inside of the mansion because of the fact there was an old fountain inside of the mansion, and I don't think it was a shopping mall, but it could have been. And so anyway, Mother Goose makes her way over to this abandoned fountain inside of this mansion. And so she leaves, and her husband leaves, and he goes out and he gets some grass, and then he comes back in, and um, and so he's building a nest inside of the mansion for the geese, and the ducks are doing the same thing because they found a place away from rodents. Until the alligator comes in, and then there's an alligator in the fountain. I don't know who put an alligator in the fountain, but it ended up in the fountain. And so there's a tiny little chameleon, but the geese are calling it an alligator. I don't know why, but the geese are calling this chameleon an alligator, even though it's not an alligator. And then they saw they saw a gecko. No, what is it? A lizard. What are those lizards called? Oh my gosh. Not a tarantula. What are those lizards called? I can't remember. But anyway, the geese are calling the lizard an alligator, but it's not really an alligator. And so eventually, though, the hole is getting large enough because there's larger and larger creatures crawling inside, and then there's a few snakes that are coming in the hole too. I mean, a python that is 26 feet long. Can you imagine? 226 feet long. A python that's 226 feet long that comes inside of this mansion. And so next thing you know, it's like Mother Goose her goose is cooked because she's got all these rodents and animals that are living inside of her mansion. And the billionaire has no idea what's going on until he actually sends a cleaning team to find out that he just had one tiny hole that kept getting larger and larger and larger. And so that's how the billionaire's house turned into a mansion for wildlife, the wildlife sanctuary inside of the billionaire's mansion. That's just how it happened, because he left his mansion and the animals decided that looked like a nice place for them to live. And so, and then he had poop all over the floor, and he had to clean everything up. I mean, because they had some little Shetland ponies that were, they fit through the hole too. And so, the moral to the story is that, how they always say that once you let the cows out of the barn, they won't come back. Well, just ask Mother Nature and wildlife, and they actually will do a reversal way back into something else that looks pretty nice for them to live in. So they will go back in a different barn, especially the mansions. They just kind of felt like, well, wait, this place kind of looks like it needs something living in it. And they make their way back in the barn. It might not be the original barn, but they find something, a stable barn, a barn stable. Where's that at? Massachusetts? Yeah, Barnstable, Massachusetts. So they find their way back into the barn of the mansion, and they just turn it into a nice home. And they're just all in there in that mansion, living cohesively and nice together, and they're not eating each other. Oh, granted, there might be some bugs that get eaten every once in a while, but but because there's a lot of grass and there's a lot of water outside, and there's a lot of places for them to live, for them to get food and water. They live cohesively together in that manger, in that giant mansion, that billionaire's manger, because of the fact that he just abandoned it because he's got too many mansions. And so the wildlife found their way in the hole, and they just made it larger and larger and larger because he didn't pay any attention to he didn't pay any attention to his mansion. So, and that's the story of how baby Jesus was born. Because there was no room at the inn. So he had to find an abandoned manger and mansion. And I tell you, if they hadn't went in there to send a cleaning team in to find out what happened, there probably would have been camels going in that hole too, eventually. Somehow camels would have made their way. I don't know how, but they would have. Camels and elephants and giraffes. And so anyway, I think I'm done right now with this drawing and my story. Hopefully my story wasn't too bad for Christmas. Even though it was a weird Christmas story that was probably delusional. I should have had some, you know what? We should have had some animals that were dialing 911. Who taught the orangutans how to dial 911? Who was giving the orangutans cell phones, and now they're dialing 911? Why did you guys do that? Texas, at the border, at Camp Eagle. You guys have orangutans down there, and you taught them how to dial 911? Why did you do that? You gave them cell phones, really? Why did you give them cell phones? And now you have orangutans who are dialing 911 off of your burner phones that they dumped at the border. And the orangutans now have picked up the identification. They've picked up the identification. Now you have orangutans running around with burner phones and identification from the pile that you just left at the border. This should be interesting, Homeland Security, because now you're chasing orangutans and monkeys. Because they can just cross the border. I guarantee it. You can make the wall as high as you want to, and an orangutan is going to figure out how to get over the wall. They probably got some claws, just like a chameleon or a lizard, a monitor lizard, and it's going to make its way over the wall somehow. But you know what? Your wall does not stop a bird. I think that's the premise of the bird flu, isn't it? That you can't stop things that can fly over the wall. Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall, and he had a great big fall. Trumpty Dumpty. Okay, I think that's it for right now. I hope my story was nonsense, because it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be nonsense. Okay, that's it. I think that's it. I really don't have anything that important to say. I really don't. I'm lucky I can even think of anything to say right now, and I'm sure that makes a lot of people happy that I can't really think of anything to say. Um, I mean, when we're born, are we supposed to say important things? Is there a stipulation or a standard operating procedure when we're born that we're supposed to say important things? Does that come along with the circle of life that things we say is supposed to be important? I don't know. I don't know. Um, I have no idea. Um, this, this is funny though. I'm glad I remembered this today. That's funny. That's actually funny. That's like a real life meme of a painting in rural America. That's kind of like the cow thing. I can't talk about the cow thing, the farmers and the cow. I can't, but you'll find stories on YouTube about it. But I'm not going to talk about it because someone's going to get mad at me if I talk about it. And the farmer that he got his belly bruised because he did something he wasn't supposed to do with the baby cow. And you know what? That story sounds kind of like the officer who, the military officer in the Middle East who used the camel for something. I never tell the joke right though, but the military tells it better. That's a military joke that they're going to have to tell about. They take their turns with the camel. Now the enlisted at literally do it the right way, but the officer, the general, doesn't. He does something else that they tell it better. Um, that's all I'll say, that they tell it better. So you can find the joke though on the internet, but that's what they're doing over there though, you know. And if that's all you have is just your leadership, your officers in charge, you're in trouble because they're doing some stuff with the camels. They are doing some things with the camels that would okay. 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 I need to go.